Okay. So our accountants are focused, one is focused on housing, that's mostly the home type grants and weatherization, lead, that type of thing. And so what most of you are, I believe, is in community development, and Philip Henderson is going to be your contact for that. So once you do all your work, well, once you've signed your contract, and once you do all your work, you're going to want to get paid. So you send your invoices in through Zoom grants. And the program team here reviews the invoices. And once they're reviewed, then it comes to Fiscal. And so that's where we take over the process. And so what we look at a few things. You have a period of performance, so you've got to do your work between, July 1st and, either May 31st or June 30th. And so we look to make sure that the invoices that you're submitting are in the right time period that your contract covers. You have to submit your billings within 30 days of the end of the contract. Some of you may have SSBG contracts. The reason that has an earlier deadline is because we have to get final information to the state by like the 10th of June. And so we can't wait until the end of, or 10th of July. So we can't wait till the end of June to get invoices in, or we can't process them, we get them done in time. And so what we look at, the program team looks to make sure that you're doing the stuff that you agreed to do with the program. What we look at is the financial information. And so we look at it for a completed cover sheet, and we look for the required documentation. So you submit your invoices. I think most of you have current programs, so you know all about Zoom grants and submitting the invoices in there. And so I'll just go through those. So we look to make sure that you've submitted and uploaded a cover sheet and any documentation that's required. Some people combine that all into one PDF, that's fine. But I think you have to upload it twice anyway. But it's easier for us if it's all in one package. In Zoom grants, there should be all the forms that you need to submit the cover sheet, etc. It's also on our website. In Salt Lake County, you can't read it, but down here it says billing cover sheet for hard costs and community services, and then for ESG and SSBG, there's some additional documentation that you have to fill out. Okay. So when we look at the cover sheets on each of your contracts, is it section B? Anyway, there's a little summary of what you're allowed to spend in the contract. Some people have salary, so everybody has salary and fringe benefits, and some people have other costs that are covered by the contract. And so, if it says salary and wages here, you should put, salary and wages on your budget line. And we would say, oh, look, it says we can pay salary or wages on your contract. That's what they're billing for, so that looks good. If the project or the contract number is important, and that changes every year. So it might be HCD 22, blah, 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 and next year it'll be 23, and for the next year it'll be 24. So make sure that's updated. You need an invoice number, billing date, and the from and to period is important because we track that, especially at the end of the year. We want to make sure that we've got invoices for the entire period that's been covered. And so a lot of people bill every month, some people bill every quarter. So we just want to make sure that all the billings are in by the time period that they should be identified by the end of the contract. And then they need to be signed. So you can either sign it by hand and, copy of it and send it in, or you can just do it electronically, like in Adobe Sign or something like that. Are there any questions? We've probably all done this many times.
A couple things as we go, on just things that I see that get kicked back. On these billing cover sheets, you've got to have 2 signatures. I can't see that very good.
Yeah,
That's for internal controls and separation of duties. One of the things that I get billed in on kickbacks are because you don't have a second signature. That's going to hold you up. It's got to be returned. And you feel free to jump in on the things that you usually return for. If you have used your Word document or whatever, and you typed in your name, it's a signature, but it's not a validated signature like Adobe Sign or DocuSign or something that you've used, it doesn't work. We've got to have actually something that is tied back, and they can tell that by your signature. I don't think we're using the one on the smart sheet yet. Anything else? Signing the billing cover sheet that your scheme is kind of through. Okay. All right.
and is this where they're gonna start putting in the IEIS number?
Not on the billing cover sheet.
Oh, not on the cover sheet, okay.
Adobe's fine. I'll use Adobe Sign.
Okay, so the second thing is documentation. Most people have payroll costs that you're billing to us. And so we take a variety of different formats, you know, based on what kind of software you use or whatever. We're not trying to make it more difficult for you and come up with a, you know, take your data and reformat it to meet our needs. But we do need a pay period, either the name of the employee or distinct employee number if you don't want to give us their name, the number of billable hours, their rate or salary, and then a breakout of the benefits separately if you're invoicing us for benefits. So here's a couple of examples. Oh, yes. Don't submit time cards. Don't submit anything that has the employee's social security number on it. Don't submit anything that has your banking information. All this information that you send us gets uploaded to our PeopleSoft system. And so we don't want any personally identifiable information on there because it's against the law and we don't want it. And we don't have to go through and black stuff out. Just don't send it to us and then we don't have to worry about it. So what we're looking for is a summary of the information, not the backup information, you know, like a timesheet or something like that. Because when an audit happens, then they'll say, okay, here's the spreadsheet that you sent in. You said John worked 12 hours. Show us in your system where John worked 12 hours. And so that's where, you know, the tie back will happen. But you don't need to send us that information up front because that just presents problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so on these examples, you know, you got the name, the pay period, the rate. Sometimes I think in legal services, you pay a salary probably, and so you're just, you know, billing for the monthly salary. The hours they worked, and then some breakout of benefits, whatever you pay. And then here's an example where, you know, the payroll system spit out the employee ID and, you know, it gave the same information, but in a different format, which is fine as long as it has it. So for operational expenses, we need receipts, itemizing the charges, a spreadsheet summarizing the charges, so we can say, you know, you spend $100 on gas, and yeah, here's the Maverick bill for $100 gas. Go through quickly, make sure everything is there. We don't pay any sales tax, so you have to take sales tax off if you pay it, because we don't reimburse for that. And direct client assistance. Sometimes pay for people's like hotel stays or rent deposits, that type of stuff. And so we just need to know the name of the client, the date of the expense, the amount. And, somebody who's signed off saying, yep, we paid that. Again, please don't send us bank statements or anything with banking information on it. We don't want that. Most people don't have travel expenses, but if you have travel in your contract, you can submit that. You just need to provide justification, and you can include itemized receipts or and then on mileage, you have to have you probably do this already internally, but you have to have the name of the employee and the dates and the purpose of the travel, the number of miles traveled. And this is the 2021 rate, but whatever the current IRS rate is, we reimburse. Okay, a lot of people have indirect charges. So indirect charges would cover like your management team and that type of stuff. It's not specifically involved in providing the service. That's going to be 10% unless you have a negotiated rate with HUD, which most people don't, because you have to be a fairly large organization to go through the hassle of trying to negotiate with HUD. But otherwise, it's generally 10%. If it's included in your contract, it'll say that. And you don't need any backup for indirect costs. It just needs to be included in your contract to be able to bill for that. Okay, and if everybody is is everybody an existing subgrantee? Okay, so you're already set up in our payment system. Okay, any questions, problems that you've run into when you've been trying to submit payments? Yes.
So 2 questions. Is this available to us? Would you be able to email this?
I'll send it to Karen and.
That would be awesome. Next question, if you're having technical issues actually getting into the right Zoom grant space, who do you call?
I don't know, I would call Amanda.
Yeah, start with me.
Start with you, all right.
Start with me.
Call Dan.
Yeah, pass along all issues you're having with Zoom grants, and if I can't fix it, then I'll send it to somebody else.
Thanks.
Questions again, you guys, get treats. Okay, so Mike, I'm going to have you fill in. First of all, before we go into the next little piece of this fiscal, I'm thinking that, like, what are you doing? So you probably got an email from Angie in the last day or so, and I want to give you a background before we have Adam address a little bit what they're working on. And Mike is waiting in the wings to see how this is all coming together, but I'm not sure he knows how it's going to work yet. So to give you some background, you've all entered your stuff into Zoom grants. That's our source of truth. That's where your grant management is. That's where you put your application. Everything's handled in Zoom grants. Once it leaves Zoom grants, all that information has to be transferred over to PeopleSoft, which is the county system that Mike talked about. We have struggled with this for years. The 2 systems don't talk. So when somebody calls us and says, this is saying in Zoom grants it's paid, but we haven't been paid, or this is a disconnect, it's because everything in Zoom grants on the fiscal side is manual and interpreted. They have to go in, they have to flip it. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to improve processes, and we're also trying to be better about knowing exactly where you are in your grants, not only where you've submitted, but what have we paid. We don't have data right now to show us what our average pay time is. So when somebody calls me and says, it's been 2 months since I've submitted and this got buried, I just die inside. I want you to know I die inside. So there's a third system, which is the HUD system, and I'm going to refer to that as IDIS. I don't remember what it stands for. Integrated Disbursement something Information System, I think. In that system, now PeopleSoft, the county system, has to turn around and ask for reimbursement from HUD from a third system. and we have to track it. Anyway, there's this mess of systems, like you all have to work with multiple systems, that's what we're doing. We asked Adam, who is just a guru on figuring out systems, as well as others in the county were saying, we got to improve this. We've got to have a better management system to see between what our subrecipients are doing and what's getting paid. This is what you're going to implement. The HUD system has an activity number. You'll hear it called an IDIS activity number. Every single component that you bill us for that's allowable has an associated number in HUD's system. We are going to start asking you to put that N number on your line when you submit your reimbursements. And I know this is gonna have a learning curve for all of us. But what's going to happen, and Adam will explain it a little bit, is by helping us make sure that that's the front end, it's going to pull it all together into another way that we can look at it and see where everything is. But I've got to have a unique identifier that goes across them. So that is what's getting implemented. It's on your current contract. You'll see it in this first one. For those of you that have been reimbursed already, I think they've already asked you to go back because we only have one invoice and help us enter that. I found out some things in the last 2 days that caught me off guard because I did not think you had to enter that every single invoice. We are still waiting for Zoom grants to come back and fix that. That's not the intention. But for right now, we may have to have you put that on every invoice because it's snagging that number so that it will flow through the system. There are very few of you, but there are a couple of you that are going to have 2 activity numbers. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does. So you will see that you may have something that says, okay, for your, typically it's going to be like if you have rapid housing homeless prevention, or if you have, I don't think we have anybody contracted for this, but if you're receiving funds for subsistence payments and you're also doing operations, that is the only thing that has a separate HUD likes to track those subsistence payments very closely. So you may have 2. If you're an SSBG provider, it's going to look a little bit different, but you will be given an identifier again, so that it can feed through our system because we have another system, which is a state system for our SSBG grantees that has to go to. So with that background, I'm going to let Adam give you a brief, and Angie, you're going to need to tag team. And to be honest with you, my team has worked this out. I have no idea how. I know how the systems are. I haven't seen it happen. They're very confident. Adam, do you want to take 5 minutes to explain? Angie, jump in. I think we have it.
Will the IDIS number be unique to the organization and so the same each quarter? Or
Great question. Yes, it is going to be unique to your activity. So if you're a CDBG, this is to my contract. So for your contract, there is one CDBG. Not that it's made for the you care to know, but if you're an ESG grantee in the system, if Link's over there and she's talking to somebody, I don't need to talk because ESG for sure head. If our ESG grantees had decided we're going to completely upset things and we're going to give one IDIS activity per component, everybody that gets Rapid House within the county this year has the same IDIS. You should never see that, but if you're exchanging notes, getting use, that's fine. But you'll have one or 2 numbers for the full contract, the full year, and then it will switch midway to the contract.
did you say that number about our
You just, I think Angie just emailed those out within the last week, yes. Yeah. It would not have been under contract because it doesn't get set up until we actually fund you in IDIS. Again, this is more information that you want to know, but we just barely got our dollars for HUD last week. So you haven't been funded because you're set up now, so.
So the IDIS number is going to be 4 digits. And then for SSBG, it's going to be like kind of a word, like, I don't know, what are, like, education and training. You know, it'll be some abbreviated version of education and training. Or legal services would be legal _ SVCS or something like that, so.
And then we have one question back there.
I was thinking yesterday, because I didn't see that. One of the things that I think, I don't see a way to have that.
gonna be in the description. So when you're filling out your invoice, you'll see the line items and then you'll see a line item description. You just gotta put that 4-digit number at the,
Because you don't, if you don't have any, if your funding hasn't been applied yet to the contract, if it's a contract, it will not let you. So when will the contract's executed, so when will that, what's when the funding has been?
In the next week, let's say that, if your contract is executed, it will be next.
And then when do we get the SSP?
Oh, or at least can speak up to.
Well, so for you specifically, since yours is one contract with split funding, don't worry about the SSBG portion of it. I would think just put your IDIS number for the CDBG portion on your, because we're the ones that decide on our end if that's going towards SSBG or CDBG. So for you, for simplicity, I would think you just put your IDIS number for the CDBG.
Yes.
and the only reason we're doing it is so that we can identify, because we have different, sometimes you'll do an invoice and it will come and we need to attach it to two different funding streams. So if you're in between, so you've got SSBG and CDBG. Now we've got a way to identify if it's CDBG or SSBG, like how much money is coming from that. This is mostly for the ESG folks who have multiple activities, because each one of those activities is associated with a different funding stream. It's got a different billing code that we have to do. Now the benefit to this is that when you put this on, it's going to take that and it's pulling it into a report that is automatically pulling into our SQL server. And then we're running a bunch of stuff, but what eventually it's going to do is it's going to give us a table of here's all the invoices that we have by line item, all the different line items. It will let us group those together. And then our PeopleSoft folks are working on just spitting it right onto a purchase request, or requisition, sorry. So what that means is that there's fewer people having to redo it, because, you know, you guys enter the invoice and then Amanda or Dan has to look at it, and then we have to send it to the fiscal folks, and then they look at it, and then they take it and they manually transfer it over to, you know, our purchase requisition. And then what we're doing is we're getting rid of that manual transfer. So hopefully making it more accurate, so they're not having to go back and do things again because it got transferred wrong. And then it's also going to give us a timestamp. So we'll be able to see, okay, when did you submit it? When did Amanda approve it? When was the payment created? And when was the payment approved in Zoom grants? When was the purchase? We'll be able to track it all along the way, so that if you say, you know, hey, where's my invoice at? I submitted this invoice. What part of the process are we at? We can go and look at it right there, and you can see, okay, it's gone through Zoom grants. Now we're looking at fiscal, and here's where it's at in fiscal, because we'll get those timestamps, and then we'll be able to tie it back so that when we put the voucher, the payment out, we don't have to wait until it goes, somebody manually puts it back into Zoom grants and says, yes, it's been paid. We'll be able to just tell you, yep, it's been paid. So does that make sense? It's to help us alleviate some of the manual repetitive data entry, so that we can do it faster, we can do it more correctly, you know, consistently. And it's to help us get that better information so that we know, hey, are we consistent? Where are we constantly getting stuck? So that's the benefit to you, is it's, you know, it's going to make it more effective for you to get your money that you need. Any questions?
I have a question. The in-between has a SSBG and a CDBG. They're two different contracts?
So Zoom grants has been really great. They've really been working with us very well. On the invoice, you don't see it. You just say, this is how much we want. We have the option of saying, this is how much is coming from each funding source for each line item. So it groups it by the activity number and that fund source, which is attached to the contracts. So we can see how much is coming from each.
Okay.
Yeah.
My next question is, last year I did have to do two separate invoices, one for CDBG, one for SPG. Now I don't have to identify which contract. That's like, because I did see two contracts.
Yeah, you have two contracts, and you can use a contract, but I do need to bill those separately. It's just when you're entering on the funding source, or when you're entering in Zoom grants, Okay. On the description line item, you'll just have the one description. Okay, but you'll still need to, for your showing to have two. Okay, so,
Yeah, because each contract is a pot of money, so we have to decrement against that pot of money.
this is why I say, I just have faith. I know that's not all of the Adam's detail mind, that's all coming together. What that means to you though is, we're gonna ask you to enter that number. I know that there's gonna be a hiccup with it is not our intention to have you do that ever. We'll figure that out, but right now that's gonna need to happen. And it's gonna make it smoother for you. That's the other thing. The other thing I want to mention, that for those of you that were here yesterday, I also mentioned one of our goals in our division is to really be more transparent with our subrecipients to give you the ability to look at real-time information. So the things that we're working with, and I know you're seeing a lot of changes right now, even on the reporting. The purpose of that is we are going to get to a point where we've got public-facing dashboards that you can see exactly where you're at, not only you as an agency, but where you're at with all the other agencies that are working for the same goal. If you're doing rapid rehousing, who else is doing rapid rehousing? What are those goals? What impact are we making in the community as a whole collectively with our funds? So there are some things that are happening. I apologize if that's kind of it's something new and something new to learn, but that is our goal, is let's make things more efficient. Let's share information with you all so that you can see not only how you are doing, but how you're doing with everybody else. And then if you have things that aren't working, please, please, please reach out to Dan, reach out to Mike, reach out to me. Let us know if you have a hiccup and something happens. Let us know so that we can continue to get this to a point where it's seamless. And I don't die inside when somebody follows the invoices, and then 2.5 months this isn't paid, we never got a check. So that's the point. Okay.
You all want, I mean, is it appropriate to submit for more than a quarter of the grant if you're submitting quarterly? Like, for example, I worked on one yesterday that now I have to go back and put that number on, which is fine. I'm just wondering, I mean, it's close to half the grant that we, close to half our funding. Is that okay, or do you want us to put just a quarter? That makes sense.
You mean update your invoice so that it's everything up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, it is everything at this point, but it's almost half the funding for every time.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's okay.
you can spend it as fast as you want.
Yeah.
We won't stop you.
We want people to spend the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll tell you, if you're CDBG especially, we want you to spend your money. We need you to spend it.
One more thing, that IDS number only has to go onto the line items that you're actually billing on that invoice. So if you're just billing salaries and wages, you don't have to put every single IDS number on all the line items, just the ones that are actually being billed in that invoice for right now. And hopefully we'll be able to get it so you just set it up at the beginning and you're done.
I will also say, if you do completely spend down your grants early, we still need quarterly reports every quarter because we need to see impact. Because even if the money's spent, we need to know what it's achieving throughout the period of performance, if that makes sense. So I'm all about the impact more than anything else. So I want to see what is being accomplished with the dollars. Okay, that was the fiscal portion. While I get this pulled up, I'm gonna, to buy me some time, I'm gonna totally single out Jackie and have her introduce herself since she missed that portion.
I'm with Wasatch Community Gardens and our job training program. Anything specific?
That's it, that's perfect.
Yes, anybody just here, the fiscal folks that came into that, thank you for coming in person. I'll forgive everybody.
Yeah.